Bookwalter for Congress Town Hall. We'll bring the town hall to you. Join Charles Bookwalter Thursday nights at 7 p.m. for a digital town hall, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Jump into the comments section to join in the conversation. Make a comment or ask Charles for his opinions on the issues that are most important to you. That's the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall, streaming live beginning at 7 p.m. Thursday nights, exclusively on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Bookwalter for Congress to learn more.
Hello, my name's Charles Bookwalter, and I'm running in the 4th Congressional District to represent you. Jim Baird claims that he wants to cut wasteful federal spending, the same claims he made in 2018. Well, he's had 6 years to do that, so let's check out the record. My name's Charles Bookwalter, and I need your vote on May 7th in the primary. Please check out bookwalterforcongress.com. Thank you.
Our nation is at a breaking point. Out-of-control crime, runaway inflation, political corruption, and politicians who talk a big game but just can't seem to deliver. Charles Bookwalter is a proven conservative leader, a man of faith and conviction, a former Green Beret. Charles Bookwalter offered his life in the service of his nation once before and is now willing to serve again. To learn more about Charles Bookwalter and his vision for the state of Indiana and this great nation, visit bookwalterforcongress.com. That's bookwalterforcongress.com. Donate, volunteer, join in, stand up, and fight back.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I'm running to represent you in Indiana's 4th Congressional District. Why am I running? Simple. The out-of-control spending, well, it's out of control, and somebody has to do something about it. Take, for example, this taxpayer-funded billboard that was strategically placed by Representative Baird in front of my Frankfort, Indiana, Jimmy John's franchise. Nice one, Jim. Now, to the untrained eye, this billboard looks exactly like a campaign ad, but it's not. It's franked mail. It's your tax dollars being used by an incumbent to remind you of all the reasons that you should go vote for them. And every day I leave work, I'm reminded exactly why I'm running for Congress. Jim Baird won't let me forget. Thanks, Jim.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
It's the holidays, you're busy, we know. So if you can't make it to a Charles Bookwalter for Congress Town Hall, we'll bring the town hall to you. Join Charles Bookwalter Thursday nights at 7 p.m. for a digital town hall, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Jump into the comments section to join in the conversation. Make a comment or ask Charles for his opinions on the issues that are most important to you. That's the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall, streaming live beginning at 7 p.m. Thursday nights, exclusively on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Bookwalter for Congress to learn more. Our nation is at a breaking point. Out-of-control crime, runaway inflation, political corruption, and politicians who talk a big game but just can't seem to deliver. Charles Bookwalter is a proven conservative leader, a man of faith and conviction, a former Green Beret. Charles Bookwalter offered his life in the service of his nation once before and is now willing to serve again. To learn more about Charles Bookwalter and his vision for the state of Indiana and this great nation, visit bookwalterforcongress.com. That's bookwalterforcongress.com. Donate, volunteer, join in, stand up, and fight back. Welcome to the show. My name is Kramer, and I'm joined by our guest, I shouldn't say guest, the star of the show, Charles Bookwalter. This is the Charles Bookwalter Digital Town Hall. We do it every Thursday night at 7 p.m. to talk to the constituents and those that are going to vote in the upcoming election, primary election in Indiana on May 7th. Charles, it has been a big week. I cannot believe all the information, all the stuff that's come out. We've got the border crisis going on. We've got the breaking news of what happened with Kari Lake and so much more. Let's get into it. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I'd like to remind people that we like to do these virtual town halls because it's an opportunity to answer questions and discuss a lot of these issues that are happening so quickly in front of us. And oftentimes I'll get questions on social media about like specific questions that take, a little bit of explanation in responding to them. And I'll refer people to these town halls and say, hey, join a town hall and ask a question. We can talk about it a little bit more and even maybe have some back and forth instead of sitting down and typing out some kind of like dissertation on an issue that can be nuanced. And so anyway, that's why I encourage people to get on this town hall and get on here live. And we'll field questions. Otherwise, Kramer and I will dictate what we talk about tonight.
We'll just talk about the stuff
I'll
that
get
interests
long-winded. Say that again?
I said, we'll just talk about the stuff that interests us.
That's right. Yeah, and we get long-winded.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'd like to make sure that we're covering issues that are specific to the 4th District. There's a lot of 4th District people that watch this town hall, so it can include local issues, but running for political office, we keep this pretty high level about major issues that are occurring in the United States. So anyway, Davos was last week. We don't have anything from Davos. I don't know if you follow Davos that much, but there was a consistent theme at Davos, and that was that like some of them admittedly feel like they're losing control. They admit that they are in control, that there's some kind of global order through these WEF, and that they once had monopolization of the truth through media and stuff, and they don't have that anymore. And what are they going to do about it? And in particular, what are they going to do about it if Donald Trump gets elected president? That's pretty much what it comes down to every single time. That's the issue is for those people. But they are admitting that there were some journalists and the high-end executives from the New York Times and other news outlets at Davos that were saying, we once had 100%. The truth came from us, and we don't have that anymore, and that's concerning. And what's going to happen if we lose control of all this? That's their question right now, Kramer.
Well, that's what I think is interesting, because Yuval Harari said the exact same thing. He was lamenting the other day on an interview where he said, if Donald Trump gets in, it's the death knell, the death blow to the global order, the world global order. And when I hear that, I clap. I'm applauding that. But to them, think about it. We're talking about hundreds of millions, billions, trillions of dollars that have been spent over the last 20, 25 years to get to this point. And I don't think that they're going to give up on it. I don't think they're going to let one man get in their path.
It's worth so much to them.
Yep.
And I think, that's a good segue into what we can go get into tonight. I mean, it's so valuable. That's why, if you think about it, when I was out in Washington, D.C. when when Congress was deliberating Mike Johnson, I think when they were deliberating that speaker incident where we didn't have a speaker for a period of time. And I happened to be out there that day. I'm sorry. I was going down a line of thought, and I kind of
lost it there.
Sideways from that. We'll have to revisit that. So I'll think about what we were saying, but let's segue into what we were talking about. Is that's what we were talking about, the value of this $1 trillion enterprise that we have going on, and so whoever wields that gavel is it's so important, and that was what was so important and so big. Is why everybody was watching this debate, is because you have someone that's wielding a gavel that's worth, I can't remember what that last budget was when we were there. It was trillions of dollars, like
Right.
4 trillion, I think.
Right.
4 trillion. Yeah. So whoever wields that gavel wields a gavel that distributes $4 trillion worth of money, of U.S. dollars.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that what people don't seem to understand is that it's not about governing the people. It's access to the purse strings. That's where the real power in this nation is in Congress with access to that money. I've told you in private conversations that one of the things that gets me is I do a lot of work out of D.C., and from time to time I'll get calls from people who want me to come help them get some of D.C.'s money. There's a new program. There's a new grant. It's disgusting. It happened right after COVID. Hey, Kramer, can you help us get some of that COVID money? No.
Yeah.
That's not what it was meant for. It's not meant to enrich you. It's corrupt top to bottom, and we're finding out on a daily basis more and more about just how corrupt it is.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason that grant writers get paid so well in corporations and universities, mostly like universities. That's why the arguments is, when they make these funds available, only those that understand how to get access to these funds get them. And typically those are big corporations that can afford to pay a staff to look into this kind of legislation and find the value in it and pull it out. In fact, I found, I was reading something, about Department of Energy rules that make, it's about how the Biden administration recently got caught by multiplying the mileage of these vehicles that they're able to get. And it took them from like when they were getting 36 miles per gallon to 400 miles per gallon. Right. So it increased an incredible amount of money. But the where they found this loophole was like on page 36,000 of the Federal Registry. Wow. I found that interesting. And so Tesla found this loophole on page 36,000 something on the Federal Registry, which gives them these tax credits that they can then monetize and sell. And they found this loophole. So, only the richest of the rich can find this stuff. That's why it's so difficult to look 36,000 page bill. I mean, come on. And do you think that Congress that passed it, do you think those legislators read that bill?
They didn't read it. They don't have time. There's no time. Even if you've got a full staff, there's no time to read 36,000 pages, even if you split it up among a staff of, 15, 20, especially when they drop it on you 28 or, 24 to 48 hours before the bill is supposed to be voted on. Yeah.
And I just read, I think McConnell came out just recently and said, we need to pass this bill before we understand what's in it. And that was referring to this new immigration bill that he's trying to pass and take advantage probably of this scenario.
Which is exactly what Nancy Pelosi said years ago. We got to pass it before we can look and see what's in it.
Exactly. And now it's coming out of, of the Republican leadership.
Well, here's a great question for you, Charles. In that you go to D.C., and that is placed in front of you, and leadership says, hey, you got to vote on this. We need your vote. And they're whipping the vote, and they come to you and say, we need your support, and you haven't read the bill yet. What's your position? What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's where you've got to stand up. And there's already people in Washington, D.C. that are requesting that. They talk about this frequently in some of these circles, like the Freedom Caucus and Massey, and then they talk about this, that they need to be given time. Massey has said that on record and said, you can't expect me to get 72 hours to read this 4,000-page document. Right. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So I think just telling the truth, that, what that is, Craig? That is just telling the truth and reality about things that everyone already knows. Right. We already know this.
Right. Yeah. Hey, by the way, let's go to questions real quick. From Pete Carlino on Facebook, he's asking, what are your thoughts on the great taking discussed in David Rogers' Web? You familiar with that?
I'm not.
No. Okay. Well, I guess your thoughts are, I know that was very specific. That's not a B-roll question.
Pete, you're going to have to get into slightly more detail. What is the issue of that reference?
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll go to another one here. One of the things that we saw over the week here, or over the last few days here, is this breaking information about what happened with Kari Lake and the bribing that was attempted, the bribery that took place in March of the last year. And we're just now learning about it. Kari Lake says that she talked to Jeff DeWitt on a number of occasions and asked him to step down because what he had done. He bribed her to step down out of the Senate seat. Most likely it came from the Mitch McConnell camp. They don't want her in the Senate. They don't want any part of her because she's not a go along to get along. What are your thoughts so far on what you've heard about this so far?
I think that this just really supports what we're seeing when they go to Davos and they talk about their not having control over the narrative anymore. When you see the number of candidates that are running, candidates like myself all over the United States, this is what we're seeing right here in the United States, a movement, a revival, an awakening of people that are engaging. I mean, this is exactly what we talk about, which our campaign does a lot, which I encourage people to look at and support. You can see the banner right there at the bottom to sign up, get our newsletter so you can join the team. But it's, it is assist and advise. It's foreign internal defense. It's recruit, train, and fight alongside. It's what we need to do as patriot. And look, one of the first things I thought of when I saw Kari Lake do that is what incredible leadership.
Yep.
Because it can be intimidating when you think like even of me, running for office is serious business. It can be intimidating. And she is a bulldog. And, that is incredible leadership to be able to stand so boldly the way she did immediately and not give into it. I mean, this is what we need from that level to your congressman, to your governor, to your precinct committeeman, people that are actually concerned about your neighbor and about your community and not about themselves and what government can do for them through this program and this that they've created around themselves where they enrich one another.
Right.
Unbelievable. And we all see it.
That's what I think is interesting is that Jeff DeWitt, in his letter that he released through the Arizona Republican Party, tried to pivot or swing this around a different way, saying that he was just giving Kari Lake advice, that it was just advice that he was giving her. Well, Charles, if he was just giving her advice, why was money involved? Why was the position involved? Why was, hey, they're going to put their money where their mouth is? Why were all of those things put in place? He says that was taken out of context. Charles, at what point, when somebody offers you money to do something illegal, what is that?
That's a bribe.
That's a bribe.
Yeah, that's bribery.
Yeah, I mean, there's no answer for, but that's not a context. If you'll do this, we'll pay you this. Name what your price is, and we'll make it happen. That's not business as usual. What I think is interesting, and let's go to one of these cuts here real quick and we can discuss, is that when you start a conversation, Charles, if I came to you and said, hey, listen, we've got this opportunity, but you can't ever tell anybody. You can't say anything about it. You can never mention it to anybody else. And the question you would probably ask is, well, why? It's illegal. That's why. That's why they're saying what they're saying. Let's go to this first cut.
There are very powerful people that want to keep you out.
I know they do.
But they're willing to put their money where their mouth is in a big way. So, this conversation never happened.
Conversation never happened. Conversation never happened. What does that mean? Charles, when you hear somebody say, hey, don't tell the cops this, what does that tell you?
Yeah. Anytime that you have that, you get a creepy feeling, then something nefarious is happening. But notice here, you're going to see a series of things the way this guy does it. And the bribe is first. Right. You'll see bribery, you'll see flattery, and then you'll see a vain threat is what you're going to see throughout this conversation process. And if you pay attention, you'll see it as we walk through this. So what you just saw was the bribery.
Well, what I think is interesting is that we've said for the last several years that the system is corrupt. It's beyond corrupt. And those on the left, those on the right go, well, there's no widespread evidence. Listen, this is the Arizona GOP chair bribing somebody who's running for office. He knew what he was doing was wrong. We had a situation in your campaign not too long ago where something was said, and it's like, well, that can't happen. Can't do that. It was by somebody outside of the campaign that said we should do something. It's like, nah, we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. I don't even want the appearance of that. And Absolutely. That's the strength that you have to have, Charles. Speak to that, because what Kari Lake did here, when she said, no, I'm not doing this, and we'll hear that at the end, what does that take to stand up to that kind of power?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I saw the first point. Just seeing her leadership at the very beginning was impressive. I want to make a side note and say that, this recently happened in Indiana in one of our counties. The GOP chair recently resigned, and it had to do with shenanigans that occur. And I'm always going to bring this about to the idea that if you're watching this tonight, if you've ever thought about engaging in the process at all, that now is the time to do it. Now is the time to look into doing something like running for precinct committeeman, running for delegate. We need good people to engage in those positions, and then good people in leadership as well. And that's the first thing I saw when Carrie Lake came on and said what she said. I'm like, that is such a bold position, bold leadership to stand strongly. She knows exactly where she stands, and it's encouraging and hopeful and optimistic. And it just is a reflection of what we're seeing across the nation, like I've said earlier, at Patriots. And
well, they're rising across. There's people with moral character. They're rising. They're tired of the snakes and the vipers, and everybody else. Let's go to cut number 2 for Carrie Lake here.
These people are corrupt.
Well, maybe you're right.
Maybe you're right.
They are corrupt.
Maybe. This is rap. Don't go. You drive it though. I'll get myself in trouble. If you say no, which is fine, it's your choice. Don't tell people.
Don't tell people. The second time in the conversation he says that, Charles, if you get that vibe, this is what's amazing to me. This is DC chatter right here. This is what happens. This is how it works. And it's not just in DC. It's at the state capitals and at in the mayor's office. It's everywhere in this country. It is rampant across this nation. And that's why we're seeing such a groundswell of people coming up and saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. That's why Davos is scared. The WEF is scared. That's why the WHO is scared. We've got him on the run, but Charles, it's going to take more than just talking about it, right? What do we have to do to keep these people on the run and defeat them at their own game here?
Yeah, I was thinking about right when you were saying that. I was taking notes, thinking it doesn't just happen here. It happens in the mayor's race, like you said. It happens in boardrooms, and that is why we had such strong language put in place in the founding that talked about the limits on what our federal government was able to do. And because they weren't foresighted, they didn't look ahead. Like, they looked behind. They saw the Magna Carta and these other forms of government that had turned into these giant Leviathan governments. And so they set a set of restrictions on the government. And we're so far past that that even like in the state of Indiana with the IEDC and these organizations, they just have such power and resources. And everyone has just resigned to the fact that that is a good thing. And we're beyond our constitutional government. We're in a new era right now where we can have public-private partnerships. And it's a global order. And the state is responsible for economic development all over, And I just think in the terminology they use, they're not they're not looking forward and setting us up for success in the future. I think that they're selling us out. And a lot of people see that now. So that's how do we fight back? We do exactly what we're doing, is you do virtual town halls on Thursdays. And you go to other town halls on Tuesdays. And Kramer, you get on live and you talk and do what you're doing. And you pick up your things and you drive to an Iowa caucus and you go help out knowing you can get there the way you can. And you go meet with small groups like what we do all over the 4th Congressional District, and you show up commissioners' meetings. And when you can, and I tell people a lot of the time, it takes sacrifice. And sometimes that's what it is particularly when there's an important issue about like solar fields or wind turbines or carbon sequestration. You may have to take a half a day.
Right.
And go to a commissioner's meeting and voice your opposition and join a group locally to help do this. That's where we are, people. We have been asleep at the wheel for too long. We've been on vacation for too long. And it's time to return from vacation and regain control of our business, which is the business of governing ourselves in America. Americans have given up that responsibility and handed over to a managerial class. And they have failed us terribly, and things are not better off because of this managerial class. And we all know, see it now. And it's so it's a great opportunity, and it's a great opportunity to pursue these strong and significant changes in Congress, in the federal government, in the way we look at things, because people are they see it right now in front of them in real time with COVID, the reaction of COVID,
Right.
constant war, pulling money from Afghanistan, putting it in Ukraine, put it in Israel. People are starting to see and put this together.
Well, one of the
more.
things that's interesting to me is that what they say is I hear time and time again, nothing's ever going to happen. Nothing's ever going to happen. They're not going to do anything. And Charles, I ask, who's responsible for that? I mean, think about it. If you've got an oppressive, tyrannical government that's being run out of London in 1776, what's the difference between that and a tyrannical, oppressive government being run out of D.C. in 2024? There is no difference. So at the end of the day, if you want change in the system, you have to get involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, just like they often say that the next, kind of war thing isn't going to be fought with rifles.
Right.
Well, some people say it'll be fought with shovels. That's after the next war. But really, this is a war of ideas.
Yep.
And attention. And we really have a good opportunity right now, as everyone admits, and agrees, even the Democrats and Republicans, on some major issues that we're all seeing through at the same time, coming to the same conclusion about a governing elite that is not looking out for the people that they have promised that they're going to look out for, and usurp certain responsibilities that never should have been usurped in the first place.
Exactly.
They should not have been usurped. And they've been taken a great fight and a great, fight from states and individuals like us. But right now, it's the worst we've ever seen it with the Fed, with so much control, and it's not just, it's the convergence of having so much control and so much failure at the same time.
Right.
And like the border is a great example of that. They have asked for all this money, for all this authority, for all these agencies and border patrol and immigration services that cost trillions of dollars.
Well, think about it, Charles. What they're saying is they're not saying give us more money so that we can stop the flow. They're saying give us more money so we can more efficiently traffic them into our country. It's not stopping stemming the flow. It's speeding up the rate at which we can get people through. That's why they're asking for the money. That's why Republicans didn't do it. Democrats are being disingenuous when they say that Republicans did not give us the money to make it more efficient for illegal aliens to come into the country. That's how this has to be positioned. Before we take a break here, we got a question here from Joseph Bookwalter, not Joseph Bookwalter. I'm sorry, Jamie Ortiz, and I think it's a great one. You want to address this one yourself. Where's my yard sign at? They see the yard signs behind you. Tell them where they can get their yard sign, Charles.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question, Jaime. So typically, with the way we're going about things in the campaign like ours, we're going to do a mass yard sign drive. So as we acquire all the information and the requests like yours about getting a yard sign, we siphon that down to the county coordinator. Then the county coordinator has a list of all the people who want a yard sign. And then after this bad weather that we have right now, of the freezing, because those yard signs can be fragile, not necessarily very durable for a tough winter or spring. So come the next few weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, we'll have our massive campaign. And Jaime, I'm actually going to put you on the spot here and ask you to assist us in on that drive and handing out those signs.
Got another question here from Cynthia Groves Bookwalter. That must be somebody in the family, huh? Bribery aside, how do you feel about the tightrope that politicians who require money to run have to walk when powerful people and lobbyists approach them with money?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, it kind of goes into what those yard signs were. Admittedly, the reason that we're buying the yard signs that are more fragile is because we're running a campaign on a shoestring budget. This is kind of how you have to do it, and you have to work hard. But what we're realizing is that it doesn't take this much money. That a lot of these people are incentivized to encourage this much money inside politics, but time will tell if you can do this on a budget like we have and do it. But then as far as when you get there, if and when that happens, and we'll listen to more what Carrie Lake said, you just say no. That's why you have to look into. It's so important to look into and see who is running for Congress. Look into their background. Give them a call. You can go to their website, like my website, and there's a phone number on there, and you can call me and ask me a question and have a conversation with me to find out what kind of person I am. You have to send the right people to Congress that have a good moral compass, and Cynthia Groves Bookwalter knows more than none other the compass of the individual and the questions she's asking. And then I would say I can only aspire to someone like the great Dr. Ron Paul, who was known as Dr. No in Congress. In fact, he said, do you know how many, he's on record saying this, do you know how many lobbyists visited me in my congressional office? And the answer was none. They stopped because he didn't take their money and he didn't do what they said, yet he was reelected year after year after year to serve the great state of Texas. And we could deliver that too in the 4th congressional district if it's not too late.
Well, that's one of the things I find. That's one of the things that I find is interesting, Charles, is that Dr. Paul. One of the things that we don't have on him is any scandals.
Yeah.
You know, he was the hardest one to get along with. He would not say yes. He wouldn't go to the teat, right, of the money cow in D.C. and suck off of it to make himself wealthy or grow his campaign. He went to serve, and that was it. And they call those people that do that difficult. They're difficult people.
Yeah, and in reality, when you're a voter out there, what you need to be looking at and seeing what kind of person is this this candidate associating himself with, and it is the likes of Dr. Ron Paul, who did such a great service to the nation as a professional, as an obstetrician, and as a congressman. And so you should look and I think that is a reflection of someone that you're going to a candidate.
Well, with that being said, we're going to take a break here. Hopefully I didn't interrupt you there. Do you want to finish up? Let's take a break here real quick. When we come back, we'll have a question from Yvonne Koch off of Facebook.
Our nation is at a breaking point. Out of control crime, runaway inflation, political corruption, and politicians who talk a big game but just can't seem to deliver. Charles Bookwalter is a proven conservative leader, a man of faith and conviction, a former Green Beret. Charles Bookwalter offered his life in the service of his nation once before and is now willing to serve again. To learn more about Charles Bookwalter and his vision for the state of Indiana and this great nation, visit bookwalterforcongress.com. That's bookwalterforcongress.com. Donate, volunteer, join in, stand up, and fight back.
You're watching the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall, and we do this every Thursday night at 7 p.m. It's your opportunity to jump in, ask questions, get to know Charles, and if you got something pointed or you don't like what you hear, jump in. Let us know. We want to hear from you. Charles, one of the things that we've been talking about for the longest time, and I think this is a great question, the last question was a good one, is about the money in a campaign. And it's the hardest thing for a campaign to do is beg for money. But that's what it takes. Your staff is, for the most part, if I'm correct, everybody's pretty much volunteer, correct? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. I don't have you on. Give me a second here. There we go. Now you're back on.
Yep, that is correct.
So with that, the cash that's coming in is really being used not to pay people's mortgages, and so it's paid to get people from one place to another, get the yard signs purchased, those type of items that we need for a campaign. So it's important for people across the country to understand that are watching this tonight that the reason I got involved with Charles is because he's standing for the exact same things that we've been talking about for the last 3-4 years. The issues in this nation are important to Charles, and that's why he stopped his life, like Donald Trump, to do what's needed because nobody else would stand in the fourth. Jim Baird, the current congressman, is not what we need at this time in history. He served us. He's a lion. He's an old lion. It's time for him to walk off the plane and let a new lion come in and start defending the rights. And Charles, I think what's important for people to understand is that you can't do that effectively against this machine without grassroots help, correct?
That's correct. And I often ask people for, time, talent, or treasure. It is one of the most common things asked of me when I go to places and speak to people. It happened to me last night when I spoke to a group of vets, and I talked about it. And I mentioned contributing financially, and they said, "Well, what can I do if I can't contribute financially? What else can I do?" Well, it's time, talent, or treasure. One of the things you can do is dedicate your time or offer some of your time up for a campaign like mine. And here's what we're working on right now. Each county coordinator, we have a county coordinator in almost every county, is working on filling at least once a week now, and then working into a couple times a week door knocking. So one of the ways that we can mobilize and people can get out and really help is by contacting the campaign and offering to be a door knocker. We could literally knock on all the doors of all the Republican primary voters in your county if we had a little bit of help. And that is a place where we can actually challenge an incumbent. We're never going to have the amount of money that an incumbent has, but with volunteers, which is such an important part of what you brought up, Kramer, is volunteers are like a real defensive force defending your nation. Like, you don't need to be paid to defend your nation.
Right.
You don't need to be paid to be a volunteer on a campaign that you really believe in and you want to work towards. So we have like the best volunteers because they're people that are really, really engaged, and we get a lot
well,
done.
that's
So
the other thing
very
I think is interesting, that as a volunteer, if I give you $1,000, once that $1,000 is spent, it's gone, right? I came in and I introduced you to some people that I knew in Morgan County, and that's worth, I think, a lot more than $1,000, because each of those people now is working just as hard as you and I are at this. And that's the exponential growth of a campaign. A true grassroots campaign is one where the people, they join in, and it's word of mouth. They want to get rid of the other guy. And I think that this term, 2024, is the term of getting rid of everybody that has been causing the problems. I'll wrap it up with this. One of the things that I think is interesting is that, Charles, every problem we have has been created by the most educated and most politically advantageous people. They are in the position of the catbird seat. And everything that we're facing is either by design or incompetence. Would you agree?
Yeah. It makes me think of like, are they really the best and the brightest,
Right.
the managerial class?
Right.
And one of the reasons I say that is because, it's a term a lot of people should get to know and understand, is creative destruction. It's in almost every industry. You look at technology, you look at even grocery stores, you look at bookstores. Kramer, when we bought books when we were younger, we went to Walden Books. Yep. Or one of these other bookstores. And then when Amazon came along, that's over. I don't even know if there's any bookstores except for used that are open anymore. So there's economic theory of creative destruction. It shows that things will change, but they get better. Yet our institutions of higher learning don't change. Right. They don't. There's no creative destruction. There's a reason for that. So that they can point to, like, my beautiful banner back here. They can point to their degree on the wall and say, well, it says I'm from Harvard, so you need to just listen to me. And that creates a institution that's not always pushing out the best and the brightest. Right. And then you add a lot of the other factors of what it takes to get into Harvard and some of the issues they've had about admissions and all that, keeping some of the top students out.
Well, the plagiarism and so on, and what just happened with Gay over at Harvard. I mean, that's right. That's a great example of the double standard that they have versus us and them. One of the comments that I made years ago that I think is hilarious, I was in a heated debate, and I made the comment, I didn't go to Harvard for 4 years to have this argument. And one of the guys in the meeting goes, well, you didn't go to Harvard? Yeah, that's what I just said. I didn't go to Harvard for 4 years.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And who the guys that I was arguing with, which is interesting, he was a graduate from Notre Dame. And that's what he brought up all the time. And finally, I'm a nice guy, Charles. Finally, though, I said, listen, I'm done with this. I said, you bring up the Notre Dame thing all the time. I'm your boss. I'm a college dropout. What does that say about your education from Notre Dame?
That's right. There you go.
So
yep.
We've got a question here from Yvonne Koch. She asks, it's interesting with all the new manufacturing jobs in Mexico due to Trump's increase on tariffs of China. Mexico industries are booming, but yet we allow illegal immigrants to cross our borders. It's not about jobs. It's about changing our elections. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was reading up on immigration policy today, and there's been a lot of amnesty programs over the years, and yeah, it's a real frightening thing. And right now, I watched a piece on Tucker today, and he said that the numbers show that we literally have up to 22 million people without documents, undocumented illegal immigrants in the United States right now. And the most contested election that we've ever had was in '84, and it was a difference of 17 million. And so right now we have 22 million undocumented, and they're always talking about amnesty or giving IDs, or it's just such a concern that we could. And over the years, if you look up immigration history, you can see that there's been multiple amnesties, usually that for millions at a time or extensions, and it's been happening since the 1980s.
Yeah,
I think
Reagan was the last one to do the big one. Reagan did a big one in the 80s.
Yeah, and it happens in the 90s. It happened in 90. It happened in like 92. It happened in 65, 84, 90, 92. There were a number of different amnesty programs that went into effect, and now it's another 22 million. It's very concerning. Again, I stand by the fact I think that a lot of this has to do with people fleeing war zones and other countries, dumping their some of their criminals on our doorsteps. I think that's happening at the same time, and it's it's a huge concern.
One of the things that we've been talking about from earlier tonight was this deal with Kari Lake. Let's get back to it. What is going to be said here? And I think this is important for people to hear what's about to be said in this next clip, because people have been canceled. People have lost their jobs. People have been ridiculed for being election deniers. And the Arizona GOP chair says very clearly that the 20 election was rigged. It was stolen. Here we go.
It's a back scratching club. That's all DC is. It's a big back scratching club. You're in no position to scratch anybody's back, and you've already made it known that if you get there, you're not going to scratch anybody's back. I don't scratch people's back. I've been on the outs with a lot of people for a long time because I don't scratch backs. Mm-hmm.
Charles, isn't he scratching somebody's back right here? Isn't that exactly what he's doing by bribing Kari Lake?
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. In two different ways, for the people that he's representing and for Kari Lake.
Right.
Yeah.
What a slime ball.
Yeah.
Where are we in 2 years if they steal the election again?
So that's important to hear from somebody that high up in the Arizona political system, that the GOP chair says that the election was stolen. If they steal the election again, I mean, everybody knows it. Everybody knows what happened in 20. Everybody knows what happened in 22 as well. And some people get itchy about that. Charles, what's your position on what needs to be done on this issue here?
Well, that is the scary thing about that last question, with all those, particularly with getting illegals and amnesty. And one of the reasons is this is what this Dr. Douglas Frank has pointed out, is that before and after elections, when they look at voter rolls, they will see, this is shown, that this has been proven and shown, that voter rolls increase a month before elections, and then they decrease back to a lower rate. So these voter rolls are inflated through elections, and that is a major problem. And it is not even bold or anything to say, because the RNC has stated this. Everyone has stated this. The United States and the Constitution in Indiana says this. The United States needs to get back to 1 day of elections on paper ballots. We need to hand count those ballots and have a paper trail, and it would engage and encourage a lot of people to get in the election. I saw this at the Iowa caucus. We need to have voter rolls cleaned monthly to show the consistency, and you need to get back to having precinct voting, where you go to your precinct with your ID, you know each other. We can see how this works out. It's not even a stretch to think that we should all want to have these strict standards when we go and vote for something that's so important, since democracy is so important and all, that it shouldn't even be a money issue. It shouldn't be a time issue, frankly. And particularly as a federal candidate, this is what we need to do. We need to defund the HAVA, the Help America Voters Act, because the federal government is not supposed to be involved in state elections.
That's right.
That act gave the states a big chunk of money, and the opponents to it said, you can't do this, Fed, because the states are never going to have the amount of money to keep this going year after year after year. And that's ended up what happened.
Well, explain that though real quickly. The HAVA money was to purchase the machines that we're now all pissed off about.
Yep. But like every government program, and the opponents always say, you can't do a federal government program because the states are never going to be able to afford it. And the government's going to have to come in and help. And that's always what happens. And that's what's happened heretofore. That's why HAVA, each state gets millions of dollars in HAVA funds per year to run their elections. And it was never intended to be that way. So as a federal candidate, I would support getting the Fed out of these elections, letting states determine. If states got rid of the HAVA money, they would immediately return to paper ballots because they're cheaper.
Yep.
And people would be a lot more engaged in the process. Again, Kramer, we saw this at the Iowa caucus. There were people standing around the tables that wanted to count ballots and watch and be engaged. We watched as the people came into that precinct with their ID to prove they lived in that precinct. They went into the room. They received one piece of paper with a name on it. I mean, I guess someone could have snuck ballots in there, but like you can't, because they know how many people are there, and then they know the number of ballots that are in there.
They counted the number of ballots that went out before they started, so they knew how many ballots were out before the count even started. That's how common sense. All of this is. You've been fighting for it in Boone County for the last couple of years of trying to get this done. And every time you go in, you've got a problem with the commissioners because they do not want to deviate from, I'd have to think, what makes them money. Right? There's no reason not to do it the easiest way
sorry to
possible.
interrupt. In my county, it's not the commissioners. I want to make a point. That's the election board. The commissioners actually, actually the commissioners
are on your side.
Are on board. Yeah.
Right. And
one of them came on here. It's the election board. And here's the way it feels to me as well, because I've been in a lot of these conversations. I'm in front of the election board. I've testified in front of them and the commissioners multiple times about this. And the uncanny thing is the secrecy in which the election board works. And right now, I think in the Indiana General Assembly, they're trying to pass a law to make it even more difficult for for lay people to challenge these government meetings. But the secrecy in which they work is unnatural and suspicious, frankly. And it makes you think that that some shenanigans are going on, because as I've said all along, all they have to do is give everyone the information and show, like, all they have to do is be like, okay, everybody, you think that these elections are there's fraud or they're rigged or whatever. Here's exactly what we're looking at.
Right.
But in Boone County alone, there are 136 civil requests out, and they don't give the information up.
No, they won't honor it because there's only one reason that you're not transparent. There's only one. Because we'll realize how much cheating and how much rigging is actually going on. And I think that it's important in this piece here with Kerry Lake that these people, this guy was the GOP chair of Arizona, that he knows the election was rigged, it was stolen, and goes on as if there's nothing we can do about it. That's basically what he says here. Let's continue.
Listen to what you're saying. Why don't we do something about it? So that we the people can pick our...
What can we do?
What can we do?
I'm not willing to accept that. And I'm going to be the biggest pain in these people's... Go back and tell them that. I'm running, and I'm going to be the biggest pain in their...
I'm willing to tell them that.
And they're going to have to kill me to stop me.
Now, Charles, when people start talking like this, think about this. When they start saying, you're going to have to kill me to stop me, that's the talk of patriots. Would you agree?
Yeah. I would, and I was just thinking to myself, I wonder if any of these homes on the East Coast during the 19th century, the 18th century actually, and the early 19th century were people having these same conversations with the patriots of America, or were they not? And it was just ended up being all out war. I don't know if it just, but you never know. There could have been these conversations in bars and dark rooms back in those days, as the rich of that day were trying to influence public opinion about the about the revolution that was to come, because they were talking about this.
Well, when you tell your enemy, I'm willing to die for my cause.
That's right.
What is
That's
that?
right.
That should put a chill through their spine, right?
That's leadership.
That's leadership. I'm done. I'm willing to face the consequences of whatever you can throw at me, even death. Let's go. And that's what the 2024 election is going to be about, I think.
Yeah. It's leadership that, I guess particularly it's in the terms of seeing it in the big picture of being engaged in politics or in the military. In the military, that's leadership because, where I was in the military, that's literally what you were facing. So when you're out there, when we were out there, we were saying, and we were saying, like, we're ready to go. Are you ready, men? Because we're ready to go die for this.
Yep. That's what it is. Let's wrap this up here with Carrie Lake here. This is interesting. It gets even better. We got one more clip after this, and these are the most powerful that I thought came out of this.
Either they come around and try to work with me, or I'm just going to. That would entail not telling layman's telling me you got to distance yourself from Trump. I know you distance yourself from DeSantis.
He's all butthurt about that.
But what I'm saying is, don't tell people that I'm with Trump. Okay, I want to work for the betterment of Arizona. I'm not going to let these people back in D.C. tell me not to run.
I'm telling you that's what.
Listen to this.
I'm not going to pause for 2 years. The battle is now. I'm offended by whoever these people are that they're trying to buy me out of.
Well, you should be honored.
But I'm offended that there's people back there who just don't give about our country.
Do you understand though? You should be honored that
this right here is what got me.
This is the flattery portion. Remember, It was bribe first, and I there might have been a few vain threats in it, but the bribe was first, bribery, then flattery, as we're seeing right here. Like, oh, you're great. Like, you should need to take, before what we'll see at the very end is what I think is a vain threat.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's wrap this one up.
It means they know how powerful you are.
Well, I can tell them
if
that.
If you weren't powerful, they wouldn't want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Right? You should be. Very few people get this.
I know. I'm pissed that they don't care more about our country. It's all about the mighty dollar to them, and that's offensive.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I don't know.
They want to get Trump so bad. They want him out so bad.
It's not about Trump. This isn't about Trump. It's about you.
Hey. We're not talking about Trump. That's a different deal. We're talking about you, sweetheart. What do you want? What can I give you that'll make you stop causing pain for the people who sent me? Because that's what this message is. It's very clear what it is. Let's go to the last cut here, because this is the veiled threat. This is the one that tells you exactly the game that's being played. Folks, we are in a dangerous position in this country right now. We're in a dangerous time. Very dangerous. Listen to what he says. What we've been saying happens. Getting Clinton, that's what he talks about here. Listen.
I think you should go public with this and then say, hey,
No.
these people don't want to, they don't want,
And I turn my key in my car and I just, I like my car.
tell them I'm not flattered. I'm offended that
Don't tell anybody we had this conversation.
I'm offended that they don't care about our country more.
I actually wish you'd just give me a counter offer this big. Give me a counter.
I can't be bought.
Come on.
I can't.
All right, I'll see you.
Okay, bye-bye.
So there you go. I mean, that is a perfect example of what I've been screaming about for the last 7 years, what you've been screaming about for the last 6, 7 years, what you've been involved with. The corruption is everywhere. And there's nobody going to fix it. Nobody, Charles, except for new blood. You can't take a gear out of a machine, polish it off, every 2 years and put it back in and expect it to run forever if it's a defective gear to begin with. And that's what we've got in the machine of government. A ton of defective gears that do not work together or separately. And it's time to re-gear the machine. And you can't do that with the incumbents. For me at least, it's anybody but the incumbent in 2024. What do you think about that?
I think the gears of the machine are so stuffed full of money that they can't move any further. And that's what she alludes to. I think her first response to him could have been, "Get behind me, Satan," because these are the words that are coming out of these people's mouths as they talk. They're appealing to our ego. It's all about you. It's all about, man-centered, man-focused. It's all about money. It's It's all about the love of money. It's just so ugly. And we all know that this is all about money. And that's a refreshing thing about her acknowledging that, is because you can tell that there's more important things to her than money. And as most of us, people that believe, like I believe, know that man is created to worship something. And if you don't worship something that's greater than man or what man can produce, then it's going to be something like money or something like that. And a lot of people worship money, and she's proving right there that she doesn't worship money. Here's another thing I take from that is that she says that the battle's now, and that is 100%. The case. That's what I feel like right here in Indiana, when people say that they're not going to run for this seat right now, right? But the fact is there's not time to wait. The time is right now. We have got to pursue a conservative takeover of the federal and state governments. So if there is a grassroots,
we've got to have a conservative takeover of the Republican Party first.
Yeah.
That's where it's got to start. When we've got people like Nikki Haley in, and I know that that's probably the third rail to talk about tonight. But this deal with Nikki Haley, we saw what was going on with Democrats are supporting him. On CNN, they were talking about only half of those voting in the Republican primaries, only half were supporting Trump. Well, because the other half are Democrats.
Yeah, as we saw.
We saw it happen in Iowa, and it just happened in New Hampshire, and they were bragging about it. They were bragging about interfering with a Republican primary just so they can get back at a candidate that they don't like. That's how corrupt this system is. That's why we need new blood. We need fresh blood. We need people like Charles. We need people like John. What's his name? He's gonna go after me. John. He's running in the 8th.
John Schrock.
Schrock.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say Broach.
Yeah. No, Mike.
I know. I got them in my brain. They're
screwed up. Let me use the opportunity real quick to remind people that may not know this, but I was removed from the ballot in 2022 because of the 2 primary rule, and I have said all along, like when it's a long story, you can look into it, but when political pundits would talk about it and say, "Oh, well, it's good. We need to have the 2 primary rule because Democrats will come into the Republican Party and take over." I said all along, you want to stop that and you want to take this seriously, then you'll close your primaries. That's what you need to do, is close your primaries. This is why we're seeing this in New Hampshire and Iowa and everywhere else, is because they're not taking it seriously, because that would be actually a step in kind of stopping some of these shenanigans that occur and then create this division, when people are like, they're sabotaging the primary. Well, look, the fact is the Republican primary is for Republicans and the Democrat primary is for Democrats, and then, so if you had a closed primary, then you would have to register a number of months in advance and stick with that party through the general. Well, the general doesn't matter. You can pull ever, but you're going to go on record and say that I'm registering as a Republican well in advance. And then you can just set a timeline of what it is. 3 months in advance, 1 month, probably more than 1 month, 3, 6 months, something like that. So anyway, that would be my
being played. I think it's important for people to understand the games, the shenanigans that are being played in our elections. And they're saying, well, we're just playing by the rules.
Yeah, but we won that case, by the way.
Right.
For anyone that didn't know, we actually, John Rust ended up winning that, which is great. It's been overturned. And in Indiana, there's no more 2 primary voting rule, and that's the way it should be. And the Indiana General Assembly should pass a closed primary law. That's what they should do. It would fix this. It would fix not everything, but it would be a good fix to what they see to being this party rating, and it wouldn't be an exorbitant difficulty or tax on a party member to register for their party a few months in advance.
Yeah, it's part of the process, right? Who are you voting for? We've got another question here from Facebook. It's from Pete Carlino. How could Congress eliminate or at least limit the ability of the alphabet federal agencies to enact rules that limit our liberties? Your thoughts, Charles?
Well, there's so many instances where Congress has to regain their responsibilities and priorities, and that's one of them. See, what Congress has done over the years is they've given that up through allowing these federal agencies to establish administrative law by creating skeletal legislation and then allowing the so-called experts to fill it out. And that's a major problem. And just one of the many roles and responsibilities that Congress has kind of given up, or other agencies have usurped it. And that's a problem. And so that would be one way, is to insist that Congress do what Congress is supposed to be doing.
Follow the rules.
Yeah. So many things. It's kind of like immigration. There's so many laws. It's so many things. Like, what can we do to fix it? What we've already passed legislation. It's just like a lot of this immigration legislation, and they studied it. It never had accountability. It never had teeth in it. It never had accountability, and then everyone knew it was going to fail from the very beginning. But they came up with a pretty name and put it on a bill that everyone's like, oh, that sounds. How could you vote against the Patriot Act? How could you vote against the Help America Vote Act? Look at the name. How could you vote
It's so
against
positive.
the?
How could you possibly vote against it? It's to help America vote. How could it possibly be wrong?
Yeah.
That's just how
And it's
asinine
bad
it is.
decision after bad decision after bad decision, which has gotten us to where we are. So, Pete, Congress has to, and I'm optimistic that there's more and more people that see this way, or someone like Carrie Lake that says, I'm not even going to take your money. We're going to fix our country. Congress is going to retain their roles. Do you know that President Biden approved the bombing of Houthi sites 2 weeks ago without having congressional approval? I mean, with what's going on in Iraq and Iran right now, and the bombing of these Houthi rebels, and I talked about this before. I've read that book, The Fourth Turning. It's an incredible book by Strauss and House. And they talk about these cyclical things that occur. And one of them is we'll always have these major wars. And to think that right now we're facing this administration handling these affairs. In fact, I would say that, it's the reason we're not at war right now is these other countries are actually saving us from not being at war with Iran right now with the Biden administration. It's just been such a monumental mishandling. And
from the very beginning, Charles, Biden's pullout from Afghanistan showed us what the administration was going to be capable of on the world stage. Yeah. Incapable, incompetent,
it was
embarrassing.
An incredible moral injury to Vietnam veterans and Afghanistan veterans and everything. And then you really push salt in the wound when you send all that money to Ukraine or whatever. But, again, that is an issue that it's Congress' responsibility to get United to approve or initiate war. And that hasn't happened for the longest time. And that is why I've said it so many times, America right now, it's hard to say. It hurts me to have to say this, but America has built an economy on war abroad, and we're purveyors of war abroad. And we have reps that are selling these machinery to kill people. And that is not ever what America was intended to be. And I think Democrats and Republicans, Americans, should be able to come to that agreement that those of us that right now that were born, like I was born in 1976, to see being at war my entire lifetime and the few generations before me, then taking part in it myself, that opens up the eyes of a lot of combat veterans. And of our lifetime, we're like, wait a second, this is
well, Charles, there's only been a 4-year period in my 60 years of life. I'll be 59 this year. 4 years. Out of 59 years, only 4 years where we haven't been at war with somebody. No new wars. We have been at war my entire life. And what Eisenhower said is true. We have a military-industrial complex, and now they've gone into pharmaceuticals. They've gone into healthcare. They own it all. And they're telling you that you won't have a life that we don't give you, right? You'll own nothing and be happy. That's where we're headed, and it's not crazy. They're taking it away from us a little bit at a time, and it's time for people to start standing up. You got about 3 minutes here left. Let's wrap up, and let's talk to people. I want to hear from your heart tonight. Why are you running? Why is it so important with everything that we've talked about, with the corruption, with what's going on at the border, what's going on internationally? Charles, tell us why you're running and why the 4th District should vote for you.
Well, I feel that we're at an inflection point. I feel like many people do that the last few years has really proven that we have been asleep and we have not been paying attention. It is our fault. People of the 4th and Americans, it is our fault that we have let it get to this point, and we have to do something about it. So there's never been a more important time. When I was in, when I kind of got called by a speech that President Bush gave when he said, if you've ever considered fighting joining the military, active duty, it was in 2006. We need you now. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. And that's what I joined in the Army Special Forces. I'm saying the same things to many of you people out there right now. It's go time. And we have to be prepared to think the right thing, speak the truth to power, and back it up and do bold and have bold strategies. Like, now is the time to do this, as we see cracks in the foundation of this elite group that is managerial class that is not doing justice to the American people. We have to take advantage of these opportunities, and now is the time to do it. So you have got to get out there. You, like General Flynn says, wake up, people. You got to take action now. And I encourage everybody to do that right now. I had to do it as a big decision in my life. Did not expect myself to be there. I've heard it many times from many people that are running campaigns like that, like mine, that it came through a calling, is what they call it, or anguishing prayer. That was my coming to this moment, and it's the same. So I feel like now is the time and we are at an inflection point. We are at a 1776 moment, and we have a lot of people that are ready to commit some time, talent, or treasure to this movement. I think that they are not taking seriously the liberty movement that is occurring not just in Indiana, but across the United States right now. You're on mute.
When people say, make the comment that you'll have to kill me to stop me, they're serious about what they're talking about, and they understand. They understand the dynamics and the threat that we're currently under. You've already made that commitment once in your life, and you're making it again today. And I think joining the likes of Kerry Lake and Trump and others, we know the game that they're playing. They've told us what they want. It's imperative that we get members in Congress. If we have any chance of saving this nation post-2024, it's got to be with new blood. It cannot be with the old people that are there that got us into the situation we're in. The people who caused the problem are not the solution to the problem. Would you agree?
That's right. Yes, absolutely right.
That's it.
Yeah. So I'm asking everybody, if you are watching this or you're replaying this, like it and share it. Go to our website at bookwalterforcongress.com. You can help in so many ways: time, talent, or treasure. If you don't have any time or you don't have any talents, you could help us, no matter where you are in the United States, because this seat in the 4th District affects you in the United States. So if you're from a Democrat city or Marion County, Indiana, and that Democrat is going to win, then you need to support a candidacy like mine. And I'm asking you for your support. I say it many times. You need to own your congressman.
That's right.
That's the way it is. We know this takes money. That is the way it is. And you need to own your congressman. Literally, if I got $1 from every constituent, I would run a campaign.
I think it's important to realize what you started to hit on it, and I want to really hit this point. If you're in a blue zone, if you're in a blue state, if you're in a blue city, if you're in a blue county, and you'll never have a chance to get a congressional member that you can vote for that's conservative, that you'll never be able to make an impact, these are the kind of races that you can make an impact with. It's important to understand that Charles is going to be one of those votes eventually in Congress. And you don't want to be in a position to where the guy that's currently in there votes against what you want. Even if you're in California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter where you are. Every congressional member makes an impact on your life based on how they vote. And when it comes down to the wire, these razor-thin margins that we currently have of only having a couple of votes in the House, you need everybody you can in there. We need to get in this next Congress, we need to have 50, 60, 70 new congressional members replacing, right? And a 50 to 60, 70 majority to show these people, these globalists, the Democrats, the socialists, and the Marxists, that we're not doing it anymore and we're serious. And you can do that by making a contribution from wherever you are in the country to campaigns like Charles and others.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Kramer. I appreciate it. So thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight at bookwalterforcongress.com. Those of you that are local, please sign up with the campaign to get our newsletters. You can sign up to help walk and knock on doors, which is a big movement that we're doing right now. We're having fun. And like I say, this is an opportunity for me to address any questions and discuss these important issues. So we will see you once again. I think next Thursday we'll be broadcasting live from a live town hall, I believe.
Yep.
We'll try to do that a few times as well. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So we have a live town hall. So we'll be taking live questions next week. It'll be an in-person town hall, and it is a 2-hour town hall. And so,
well, by the way, where is that going to be? Let's get that out.
It will be at the Knights of Columbus in Jasper County. So it'll be in Rensselaer, Indiana. And I don't have the date on me. You want to find out more? You can go to the website, bookwalterforcongress.com, or go to our Facebook page, Bookwalter for Congress, and it has a flyer on it there.
There we go. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for everybody that joined tonight. Charles, do you have any parting words?
Nope. Stay frosty, everyone, and don't get too spun up about things. And be joyful always. Pray continuously, and give thanks in all circumstances, for that's God's will for you in Christ Jesus.
That's good enough for me. There we go.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I'm running to represent you in Indiana's 4th Congressional District. Why am I running? Simple. The out-of-control spending, well, it's out of control, and somebody has to do something about it. Take, for example, this taxpayer-funded billboard that was strategically placed by Representative Baird in front of my Frankfort, Indiana, Jimmy John's franchise. Nice one, Jim. Now, to the untrained eye, this billboard looks exactly like a campaign ad, but it's not. It's franked mail. It's your tax dollars being used by an incumbent to remind you of all the reasons that you should go vote for them. And every day I leave work, I'm reminded exactly why I'm running for Congress. Jim Baird won't let me forget. Thanks, Jim.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
Our nation is at a breaking point. Out of control crime, runaway inflation, political corruption, and politicians who talk a big game but just can't seem to deliver. Charles Bookwalter is a proven conservative leader, a man of faith and conviction, a former Green Beret. Charles Bookwalter offered his life in the service of his nation once before and is now willing to serve again. To learn more about Charles Bookwalter and his vision for the state of Indiana and this great nation, visit bookwalterforcongress.com. That's bookwalterforcongress.com. Donate, volunteer, join in, stand up, and fight back.